In this episode, this is our Sunday pressure release episode. I write during the week, as you probably know, at gavinadams.com. Most of you are subscribers to that. I record content, YouTube channel, the podcast, and I almost exclusively focus on leadership in the church, preaching, discipleship pathways. It's all intentionality stuff that helps relieve the pressure that ministry delivers. But on Sunday, I write a little differently. We just talk about some of the more internal struggles that pastors experience. And today, on the Pressure Pod, that's what we're going to talk about. Today's pressure, we're going to talk about revival, because you're maybe praying for revival, and maybe nothing's happening. The church still feels stuck. The momentum feels flat, and you are wondering, why isn't this working? But let's talk about that pressure. I have seen a lot of churches that prayed for a revival. I've also seen a lot of those churches eventually close their doors. And it's not because their prayers weren't sincere. I mean, they meant it. They were passionate. They were desperate for sure, especially as things got worse. But, desperation without direction rarely leads to transformation. Let me say that again. I think that is so important for us to remember. Desperation without direction rarely leads to transformation. And that's a hard truth, right? We often pray for God to do something that we're not ready to receive. You can think of it like this. Maybe you pretend you're a farmer. You can beg God for rain all day long, but if you haven't planted any seeds or tilled the soil, well, who cares? What's the rain even for? Praying for revival without preparing for revival, it kind of feels like spiritual theater in a way. It feels faithful, it looks faithful, but it's rarely, if ever, fruitful. Probably the most, best example of revival we have is in Pentecost. If you read through the book of Acts and read through the narrative of Pentecost, everything leading up to it, it's interesting what we find. It's the original revival moment, right? But it was not random at all. It wasn't random. The disciples didn't gather hoping maybe something would happen, right? They were obeying a direct command from Jesus. Stay in Jerusalem, wait for the Spirit. So they gathered, they prayed, they stayed together. And then when the Spirit came, remember, like a rushing wind with tongues of fire, they did not freak out. They didn't scatter. They didn't, hold committee meetings. They stepped into the moment that they were prepared for. And then Peter stands up and delivers the first gospel message, at least sermon on that level. Why? Well, he was prepared to do it. And when all of those things happens, when all of that preparation happens, look what happened at Pentecost. 3,000 people repented, were baptized, and the church begins to explode. That's revival. And that's what we're praying for. That's what we want to experience in our churches and in our communities, in our country, in the world. But it was built on preparation and obedience, not just prayer. Here's what I tell pastors all the time. God tends to bless what's blessable. And preparing for a move of God is very blessable. When you look at your community, for instance, there are churches that it just seems like God's blessing them. And maybe you are that church and you look around and other churches are not doing as well as you are. Or maybe you're in that declining church. You're in that season in ministry and it's hard. And you look around and it feels like God is like randomly dropping blessings on everybody else but you. That is so irritating. And I don't want to push on you too hard, but I want you to consider, what if God isn't blessing randomly? What if he's blessing strategically and intentionally? We know that God is highly strategic and intentional. Jesus was sent when the time was right. Everything about the creative narrative, everything about the moves of God were done with high purpose, with intentionality. None of it was random. And a lot of preparation happened first. I wonder if that's true for our churches. If you're serious about revival, I'd love for you to just maybe ask yourself or maybe your elders, your leadership team, just ponder these four questions, just four things to think about. Okay, here's the first one. Is your church spiritually prepared for what you're praying for? Like, it's a hard question, but are you praying for something or are you preparing for something? Because if you're not combining preparation with prayer, well, if it happens, you're in trouble. So are you prepared? Is your church spiritually prepared? All right, second question. Are your systems ready to handle the growth? Organizationally, are you ready for what God might choose to do? Number three, is your team aligned and equipped to shepherd people well? I mean, hospitals, churches are hospitals, and hurt, broken, messy people show up. And a revival doesn't just bring a lot of easy people, it brings a lot more challenge, a lot more hardship, a lot more problems. Is your team ready for that? Are you aligned and equipped to shepherd those people well? Last question. Are you building environments that remove obstacles or that create them? Again, it's hard for God to, I think, engage with the church and allow them to experience revival when there are obstacles all in the way for people who are turning to God. We've got to be obstacle removers in the gospel. So the churches that I work with, you probably know this, I work with pastors, I'm a coach and a consultant with churches. It's what I do for a living. The churches that I work with, and I work with lots of different churches, the ones that are thriving, there is a few things about them that are unique. And one of them is this: they're not just hoping for a revival, they are preparing for it. And they're not passive, they are highly intentional, they are strategic. They create services with clear next steps. They train all of their volunteers. They build discipleship pathways with high degree of strategy involved. And yes, they pray for God to do what only He can do, but they don't just pray, they prepare. And I think that might be the move you should consider, to start praying for revival, but don't stop there. Start preparing for it too. You've heard this before, and I love this thought. Plan like it depends on you, but pray like it depends on God. Because, the Holy Spirit, He doesn't need your structure, right? But He sure seems to use it when it is ready. Now, if you are, I'll just end with this. If you're kind of unsure how to prepare or how to make sure your church is ready to grow and to scale, I get it. That's what I do. Every month, I hold absolutely free pressure valve sessions. So obviously, I write at gavinadams.com. Many of you are subscribers to that. Hopefully, you've subscribed to the Pressure Pod, the YouTube channel, and the podcast. But once a month, I attack one pressure, have a live conversation that I host and lead around one pressure, and we try to create real relief in 1 hour, totally free. No strings attached. I'd love for you to go to the website. Just go to gavinadams.com. You can read about the next one coming up. I'd love for you to maybe consider joining a leadership lab or maybe invite me out to your place. I've been doing lots of discipleship pathway strategy sessions, 2-day workshops with churches lately. If that would be beneficial, I would love to have a conversation with you about that. Or if you're just feeling pressure and you're not even sure where it is or how to name it, at my site, I have a pressure inventory. I'd love for you to take that. It will help you identify, because you can't fix what you can't name. So take that free pressure inventory while you're thinking about it. All right, let me end with this. Last thing, let's get your church blessable. I don't understand fully what God blesses, but I do know He doesn't tend to bless things that are not blessable. So let's do everything we can to prepare so that our church is blessable.